The other thing for me is extensive plyos has become more important for me. And the reason is it fills gaps. So you got to keep that spring load on your tendons. Otherwise, in your 30s, you're at high risk for ruptures. That's the downside to 30s. 30-year-old males especially, that's like prime time for tendon ruptures. And so if you go a couple weeks without exposing your tendons to any spring load and then you just go play basketball and you take a back step, it's just not worth the risk. So if I'm playing 3 days a week, which I don't have the time to, if I'm playing 3 days a week, these days I don't do that many other plyos. I might hit a couple max jumps because when you play, you don't get that many max jumps. But the extensives, that 30% to 80% intensity, you get a lot of that when you go play. So if I'm playing, I don't need to do a lot of plyos, but that's where I'm getting the spring load on the tendons. But especially as you age, what happens is you get busy with other things. And so now you can't go out and you can't go play. And so now I'm going a week or 2 weeks without playing. Well, now 3 days a week, I got to sneak in some more extensive plyos. I'll do some ankle dominant plyos. I'll do some knee dominant plyos. But it's not just the really intense stuff. You need to accumulate volume so that you can replicate the court, right? Basketball specific strength and conditioning, where you're really mimicking the forces and the stresses and the conditioning elements and all that. We're replicating exact movements that are done in the game. That actually becomes more important for non-basketball players. Like that's kind of something that messes with your mind. Basketball specific strength and conditioning matters way more for weekend warriors and athletes who aren't currently on a team than it does for athletes who are on a team. If you're on a team, you're probably playing, you're probably getting a lot of extensive plyos. You're getting all the specific movements. You're doing skills training every day. So the weight room becomes more of just like, let's do some general stuff. Let's do stuff that we're not already getting on the court. But like in my case, if I'm going an entire week or 2 weeks without touching a basketball, I need to do some extensive plyos to replicate the loads, the spring loads that my tendons will get when I go back to basketball in 2 weeks. So I think that's the most important thing that you can be doing for reducing the risk of like tendon ruptures and tendinopathies and that kind of stuff. Replicating basketball movements, like, how good basketball is for your mobility? Just watch a stationary ball handling drill. If you're like shifting weights the right way, you get so much internal rotation, external rotation. The foot is supinating and pronating. Like, you get your mobility work through proper ball handling drills. And then you don't touch a basketball for 2 weeks because we're busy. We're in our 30s. We got more important things to do. So now I'm not getting that mobility. Now I'm not putting my joints through those full ranges. So now I need to replicate those positions. I got to think, okay, in this split stance, I shift this way. I internally rotate. And so you have to like really replicate exact game positions and work on getting in and out of those positions and then exploding out of those positions. So basketball specific change of direction work, basketball specific agility becomes way, way more important the less you're actually playing. So a lot of people think about that backwards. If you're 20 years old, you're on a college team, when you go to the weight room, everything should be basketball specific angles and specific agility. And yeah, some of that can be good, mostly for filling gaps. But you're already getting a lot of that on the court. But somebody like me who isn't playing enough basketball, I got to replicate basketball specific positions and basketball specific forces and replicate the conditioning demands to then fill those holes so that when I get back to it, I'm not going to get injured and I'm still going to be relatively prepared. Now, there's absolutely nothing in this world that gets you in basketball game shape like playing basketball. Even if you just played one-on-one, like, you get in pretty good shape, but basketball game shape 5-on-5 is just very different. Getting up and down, the decision making, even if your lungs and your muscles and everything is optimized, like there's just a brain component. Like, there's brain conditioning, there's competitive stamina. Like, how long can I stay locked in defensively? Your mind just starts to wander. Like, the game is moving too fast. So there's just so many components of being in basketball shape that can only be developed through playing 5-on-5 basketball. But especially in terms of reducing the risk of injury, I got to get myself to the court healthy. I got to not get hurt when I go play. And so we are trying to fill holes, and we're trying to do the best job that we possibly can